Hi. Basically, I just got bored of talking to myself, so I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna talk to a camera and a microphone, like a truly sane human being. I know I'm meant to be working on an album, but fuck that, I'll do this instead because I want to. Content warning, I guess. A big old content warning. I'm gonna be talking about info hazards. I find the concept of info hazards really interesting for a lot of different reasons, but just mainly the way in which they operate. I don't really know how to define an info hazard exactly. The basic premise is that it's a piece of information in which the act of knowing it is dangerous. So like knowing the information is the dangerous part. I'm gonna be talking about these really broadly and not like specifically. So I'll give you 3 examples. 1 hypothetical that I'm making up in my head right now, and 2 popular media examples that you probably know, just so that you can get the picture of what I'm talking about. All right, so fucking the hypothetical. Let's say there's a government document and it's super top secret, like the highest top secret you can imagine. It contains information that would bring apart the foundation and structure of society as we know it today. And if you find out what's on this document without having like the clearance level to do so, the government's gonna come and kill you. All of the cameras in your house are gonna be monitoring you to make sure that you're not arming yourself. The telly's gonna send your fucking GPS, your phone's gonna be ringing and all that shit. The men in black are coming, and it's not a joke. It's inescapable death if you happen to read this document and you weren't supposed to. That makes that document an info hazard, because knowing what's on it is dangerous to the person who knows it. It's not a true info hazard in the sense that there are people that can know it without it being dangerous to them. Obviously, if you were the highest level of the Illuminati, you could know it. You're the one calling the shots. But to regular everyday people, it would be dangerous enough to be considered an info hazard. But that's kind of whack because, like I said, there are people that can know about it. So an example from a piece of media, I'll use the movie The Ring. I haven't watched this movie in fucking ages, and I'm not gonna re-watch it so that I can sit in a corner and be 100% correct with what I'm saying. So forgive me if I'm a little bit off, but from memory, in that movie, the premise is that if you watch that tape, you have 7 days to like live, and then the little girl jumps out the telly, makes your floor all wet, beats the fuck out of you, I don't know what happens. You die in 7 days if you consume that media. So that piece of media would be like an info hazard. Knowing about, well, oh fuck, I'm not sure if knowing about the tape makes you die. I'm fairly certain you have to watch it. So again, it's not a true info hazard because you can be fully aware of the tape and the consequences. You have to actually watch it to die. But again, I'm not sure if that's how that works. Fucking sue me. But you get the idea. Like watching that tape would be an info hazard because as soon as you see what's on the tape, you're in danger, and it's an inescapable danger. And the third and final example I'm gonna be giving, just so that you can like have a full grasp of the basics of what we're gonna be talking about, is the movie The Bye-Bye Man. It's a fucking horrible movie, and I'm not gonna pretend for a second that it's even clever in premise. But the concept of the Bye-Bye Man is an info hazard. It's this fucking monster or ghost being, I don't even remember what it was, that if you know about it, it comes and kills you. He is like the #1 underground band of all time, because anyone that finds out about him fucking gets it. Your blunt starts being shaped like Lizzo.
My blunt shaped like Lizzo. Baby, I ain't crazy, I'm just schizo.
You have delusions, you fucking seeing shit, hearing shit. I think eventually it just comes and kills you. It's an evil, spooky ghost. Knowing about it is dangerous. That's the premise. There you go. Now you know what an info hazard is. Now I can start rambling incohesively. People like, they're also called like cognito hazards or cognition hazards or some shit, or like data hazards, idea hazards, know too much hazards. And although like 99% of the time info hazards are just fake and they're used for either horror or just to tell a story, there are some examples of like semi-real info hazards. That government document I said I was talking about at the start, it's real. I've seen I mean, like, fucking in, like, it must have been, what, the 1500s, 1600s, whenever the fuck the witch thing was.
I really just called, like, the Salem witch trials the witch thing. I mean, like, when they were burning women alive.
If you're a chick and you know about the occult, knew about the occult when, like, people were just getting burnt for, like, being witches when they probably weren't, that was dangerous, because the more you knew about it, the more likely you were to be persecuted as a witch. People were really dying over that shit, and that's crazy. I'm sure there are other real life examples that I could give, but I'm not a fucking historian, so I'm not gonna be bothered researching that. Instead, I'm gonna be a good little media student and talk about popular examples throughout pulp fiction. Is that actually what it's called? Pop culture, as well as not necessarily being real. Info hazards aren't even necessarily scary. Take, for example, the funniest joke in the world, I think it was called, by Monty Python. The whole premise of it is that if you hear the joke, you start convulsively laughing and you can't stop, and eventually you die of laughter. Technically, that joke would be an info hazard, because knowing about it is dangerous in that you'd laugh until you died. It's not a very scary example, but it is an example of this concept being used ages ago in media. I mean, fucking Lovecraft, like, half of his stories are just, there's this being that you can't comprehend and seeing it will drive you mad. Hey, what was Lovecraft's cat name? Checkmate, atheists. Fuck a racist. Kick a racist in the teeth. Being a racist is an info hazard, because I'm coming for you. I am Antifa. Bah. I'm fucking delusional. No, dog, no. Stay over there. Dog was gonna come and fuck everything up. Alright, back on topic. Lovecraft even wrote about, like, non-Euclidean geometry, which I'm not gonna even attempt describing, like, non-Euclidean spaces. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna be real, I honestly could see that as a valid, like, info hazard in real life. Like, if you actually somehow witnessed, like, 6D geometry in which, like, it's things you can't comprehend because of how we understand the world around us, it would probably drive you mad. That's probably why those kinds that take acid and they go into, like, trips and all that, they just saw past it, bro. And, like, there are a fuck ton of movies that use concepts like this, like just knowing something's bad, it's a secret, and you find out about it, you go crazy, or you find out about it and they come kill you. And I think like, it's a really cool way to tell a story, regardless as if it's a horror story or just an interesting story. But because of how, like, hypothetical the whole thing really is, I think that info hazards lend themselves a lot more to internet horror rather than, like, traditional horror. You can't really talk about info hazards without mentioning SCP. If you don't know what SCP is, do you go on the internet? If you don't know what SCP is, you're probably cooler than me, so fuck you. Imagine creepypastas, but it's like interactive roleplay, and that's pretty much it. The basic premise is that there are people that write stories from the perspective of, like, a researcher at a top secret government facility lab that studies entities and beings and monsters that are hidden away from the public, and it's all super top secret. So the format of SCP is like, you write it as if you're documenting it as a researcher, and they don't have names, they're all numbered, and it all revolves around, like, this foundation. That's the place where they do it all. It's like half and half lame cool. Yeah, some of them are dope, some of them are fucking whack, some of them are like epic beings and, like, unfathomable Lovecraftian gods, and others are like a can of toast that, what the fuck is a can of toast? Toaster that if you touch it will, like, murder you or something. And half the time the toaster-ish ones are cooler than, like, the god ones, because they just sometimes get a bit blown out of proportion. Even if you don't really know, like, what they are, chances are you've seen a photo of an SCP. That's a photo of an SCP. That's a photo of an SCP. That's a photo of an SCP. The breaking neck dude, that's an SCP as well. I don't think they invented the term info hazard, but they kind of popularized it or coined it, because in the entries, like, a lot of the monsters are described as info hazards. Like, knowing about them is the only way they start appearing to people, and that's why they gotta keep them contained. Bloody fucking blah. I like SCP, I think it's cool, but again, some of it's just too fucking whack for me. I could never get into it, like, the role-playing aspect of it, but I appreciate it. Thanks for doing it. I mean, even just as a creepypasta, Smile JPEG, like the Smile dog, that's kind of an info hazard. You see the demonic entity photo of a smiley dog and it comes and kills you, bro. that shit bites your nuts off. It's fucked up. I really hope that if you do take info hazards kind of seriously, even like in the smallest amount, you stop
watching. You've got other delusions to listen to, baby.
But the internet has kind of fucking like loved this concept forever. Think back to the ancient days of like chainmail messages. Shout out Gob. Those messages that it's like,
Hi, my name is Carmen Winstead. I'm 17 years old. I am very similar to you. Did I mention to you that I'm dead?
If you're seeing this, you need to send it to 10 other people. Otherwise, a drowned girl will appear in your room under your bed or something at midnight, 3 a.m. Spook.
that's an info hazard. If you don't send it to 10 people, you'll die just because you saw a photo. I'll be dead honest, right? When I was young, the first time I saw one of those, it scared the shit out of me. I was like, well, I wasn't like scared of like, oh my god, I gotta send this to people. It was more just the thought of like, wow, I know this is probably fake, but fuck, I do not want a little drowned rat to come and eat my feet at like 3 a.m. So I like sent it to people, and then I remember I sent that around, and then the next one I saw, which was different because they all had a million variations, said you had to send it to like 25 people. And because I was like, just got my phone like a week before that, I was like, gee, I don't have 25 Instagram followers. Like, who am I going to send this to? I took the leap of faith, didn't send the photo around to anyone, and lo and behold, I'm still here alive today. Or maybe I did die. Maybe this is all like an after death hallucination, and that was the day I died. Drowned rat Jimmy really did come and murk me in my sleep, G. And so now I want to talk about the one that it's the reason I want to discuss this topic as a whole. I'd just like to remind you of the content warning that I put at the start of this, because this one's spooky. It's actually fucking not at all, but solar plexus clown gliders. I'm fairly sure that's the right thing. You see the dog, or is it out of frame? There's a dog. So let me set the scene. I was home alone one night, right? I was getting a little ukt. Alright, you're ruining the immersion. I was washing the dishes, and I had a Wendigoon video on. It was the tier 9, episode 1, Wendigoon, icebergs. If you don't know who Wendigoon is, do you not go on YouTube? He was recommended to every human on the planet. Conspiracy theory iceberg, right? So I'm cooked as shit. He's talking about how like water is sentient and everything, and I'm just sitting there like, damn, that could be true. That's dope. I'm getting really into all the conspiracy theories. My mind is like open to anything right now. And so I'm cooking the dishes and washing the dishes, and I hear him say like, oh, this is an info hazard. If you like care about them, you might want to skip to this point in the video. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I really don't care about them. I'm just gonna keep listening. But because it caught my attention, I'm now looking at like my phone where I was playing from instead of just having it on and listening. And he says solar plexus clown glider, and I look at the photo and I'm like, holy fuck, that's creepy. And then he's like, oh yeah, it's this thing. If you know about it, it's gonna come kill you. I'm just like, nah. Skip forward. I'm like, this is not real. I know it's not real. It's just annoying. But I don't want to get passed out right now because I'm home alone. It's dark. Skipped it. Kind of moved on a little bit. Then, later that night, I'm lying in bed watching a JJ McCullough video on internet horror. I think it was called Millennial Internet Horror or something. And he fucking mentions it as well. And the whole thing about this, like, one entity was that if you hear the name a lot or you see the photo repeatedly, you're more and more susceptible to being killed by, like, the entity that is the demon. And for, like, one night, I was genuinely uncomfortable because in my head, I was like, oh, don't think about those words. What were the words? Yeah, solar plexus clown glider demon. And so I kept thinking about it. I'm like, bro, just stop. I couldn't get it out of my head. And I was lying there going to sleep, and I was like, oh, I just getting frustrated that like this was even, because it wasn't scaring me, more just annoying me and making me feel uncomfortable. And then I had the reassuring realization that, oh, this is just the plot of the Bye Bye Man. And I was fucking fine after that, because I'm like, oh, yeah, what the fuck? If those kids was like, bye bye, don't think it, don't say it. Don't think it, don't say it, bro. Like, you know. And then now I just think about it in the same like vein as all these other ones. But at that time, it did scare me the tiniest bit. There are other info hazards that like fall into like the thought experiment category, like Roko's basilisk. I'm not gonna even bother trying to explain that properly. Go watch Wendigoon's video on it. Shout out Wendigoon, we Wendigoon fan channel. The basic concept again is if you know about it and you don't do something, you're in danger. And that one works more as an actual just thought experiment, which I respect, but it doesn't do it for me in the sense that it's not like a horror sort of thing. It's just a unique thing to think about. I don't know why I can be like, oh, I'm not scared of big robot coming to kill me, but I'm scared of internet demon coming to kill me. But that's just how my brain works. Maybe I'm alone in that. Maybe it's tapping into some primal caveman thing of the unknown. I know about robots, I just don't like them. I don't know how demons work because they're something that has always been out of our understanding. And the last info hazard I want to use as an example before I just talk about like why I like info hazards and why I think they work is, oh, by the way, before I say it, you're losing. It's the game! It's the game. You're losing. If you don't know what the game is, you're playing and you're losing. I'm not even gonna fucking explain it, but fuck you, Brad, you're losing, you piece of shit. You know, things like that, like they're all info hazards. Like knowing about the game means you're losing or playing. It's like, I don't know. Shit, if you're in an area that plays sixes for farts are info hazards, bro. You fart, someone calls sixes, you get punched 6 times. That's dangerous. Alright, so going back to like the horror aspect of info hazards, because I do think that is where they're like most effective, I think is the right term. With the clown demon solar plexi thing, I saw a comment on the Wendigoon video that was basically echoing the same sentiment I have towards it. We all know they're not real. I 100% believe that there isn't going to be a demon that's gonna crawl out of the roof because I looked at a photo on the internet. But what it is it's that paranoia. It plays on paranoia to be effective. If you can forget about it, you forget about it and it doesn't work. But if you can't, the more you think about it, the more worried you are. It's this cycle that feeds on someone's insecurities or fears of like helplessness, really. And that's why I think that honestly, these things probably like, there should be content warnings on them around the internet and that, because there are some schizo cunts that use the internet. And honestly, I think if you are a paranoid schizophrenic, you probably shouldn't be on the internet. You should be preparing for what they've told you to prepare for, because it's coming soon. I don't even know if that's funny or not. I am the voices in your head. For people with paranoia, like these probably would fuck them up. Like I'm paranoid and pazzed. I'm a little bit off on the noggin, but you know, like I have an understanding that when I get in super paranoid moods, that it's not real, it is the paranoia. There are some people that don't have the luck to be able to do that. Lily, you stink like shit, dog. There are people that don't have the ability that I am blessed with to know that when I'm getting really paranoid about things, chances are they're not true. And you know, I guess a lot of that is just, I kind of tell myself, oh, if it is real, then I'm gonna fucking die. And that's how it's gonna be, because that's how it's gonna be. But there are people that can't do that. There are people that, you know, seeing Smile Dog probably like broke at least a couple of people, sent them into full permanent mental psychosis because they were terrified that a fucking Polaroid of a dog was going to kill them. It sounds so stupid, but what you gotta understand is this is a reality for some people. And that's why I think this as a concept is such a unique way of telling stories. Horror is such a subjective field. Like you could have a movie about spiders that would be like the scariest thing on the planet for one person and do nothing for someone else. This is just the same thing. If you don't have paranoia, these probably just either seem like interesting or lame, not super engaging. But for someone that does at least have a bare minimum an understanding of like how paranoia actually works in the real world and like real humans that have it, I can see this shit being really interesting, and I think it's really dope. Obviously, there's a difference in quality between a chain message and like a Monty Python skit, but they're both using this same basic concept of information being dangerous. It kind of breaks down like our perceived perception of, I don't fucking think that's correct grammar. Our perceptions of like what can hurt us. Like a car can hurt us, a spider can hurt us, a bullet can hurt us, but information can't, or can it? I don't know. I probably reckon there are some real ones, bro. I reckon not like solar plexi clown demons and shit, but there are probably some entities that witnessing them would just drive you insane. Shit, fucking, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. Alright, I don't fucking remember how I was gonna end this. I think I'm gonna go make beats. Alright, fuck this.